you're kind of mechanizing the animal by calling it a finite state machine. The Windows operating system is a finite state machine. An organism is an infinite state machine because evolution is an infinite process. I have a lot of friends who are atheists, and we argue about this all the time. You're a machine, you're an elaborate collection of atoms moving through space and time. I would disagree.
I think on an individual basis, we're finite state machines. I mean, we take in energy and we excrete lesser energy. And
among other things.
Among other things, and words. And we have a finite beginning and a finite end. And
how can you prove that?
Well, I mean, have you gone to a cemetery before?
No, I'm talking about the actual process of evolution. It's an ongoing...
Well, evolution is also not something that happens on an individual basis. This is something that happens on a species basis. This isn't change in individuals. It's change in a species over time. It's not like one thing is...
You don't believe that you're evolving right now as we speak?
No, I'm pretty much what I am. My children might be something different than I am, albeit slightly, but it isn't like an animal grows wings to react to its environment. It's that there's a random mutation that's acted upon by non-random environmental pressures.
And by random, you mean something that is beyond the threshold of measurement? You can't measure
No,
it?
not beyond the threshold of measurement. I mean, there are weird random mutations. Some of them are beneficial. Some of them are less so.
Most of them do nothing.
Most of them do absolutely nothing until acted upon. Like, for instance, it may have no basis whatsoever of whether this actually helps you or not until something jumps in to put pressure on it, and suddenly it becomes an advantage or a disadvantage. To whether you're going to survive and have offspring.
Yeah, but I would argue that the crab and you have an infinite choice. The crab can go on the water, it can go on the rock, it could go off the rock, and thanks to evolution, those choices are infinite, whether you believe them or not.
Well, I think there's certain limitations to what a crab can do. I mean, obviously, it can't choose to fly, it can't choose to write Hamlet.
Well, you're just using extreme scenarios.
Well, I'm just saying, I wouldn't say it's infinite. I think that there's certain things that human beings can't do.
You used the Windows operating system as an example of a finite state machine earlier, and if we extend that metaphor to include the internet, the Windows operating system can go to websites, can check email, can do instant messaging based upon stimulus from other factors. So does that seems analogous to me to the crab on the beach scenario. So does that, in that context, does the Windows operating system become an infinite state machine?
No, it will never become an infinite state machine because it's bounded by certain mechanisms. See, the thing is, when Richard Dawkins uses evolution as evidence that there's no God, I get...
To be fair, he doesn't say that. He simply says that with evolution, you don't need a God to explain the universe around you. He doesn't say that it's evidence against God. He said that several times.
Well, the South Park episode that I saw was...
Yeah, but that was also... That's also, that's also a straw man of that. Actually, Dawkins thought the episode was funny, but he wished that he found somebody who knew how to do a real British accent to do his voice. I do think the animation of him looks pretty accurate, though.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I had fun.
Anyway,
yeah.
I want to thanks for your time, and I appreciate your show. Thanks.
Hey, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right.
That's a good one, because it's for me, the difference between the finite state machine and infinite state machine is based entirely on perspective. I mean, from what we know about cosmology and the evolution of the universe, it doesn't, I mean, we're looking at kind of a fade away type thing where matter just sort of stops. And if there's no matter, evolution as we know it can't really exist, and de facto, that would make evolution a finite state machine. I'd really have to think about that.
I don't know. I think that this is always going to be the question that we have is that, like, for instance, evolution happens because of the environment putting pressure on an organism. The question is that when do we get to the point where we control so much of our own environment that it maybe affects us less? I don't know. I'd really like to ask an evolutionary biologist about this. If I had a chance to ask Richard Dawkins any question, it would be, what happens when humans can control their own environment to that degree? Oh, it looks like we have a call from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Twoferman? I think we have an email from you that we were going to answer later. What's up, Twoferman?
Oh, really? Do you? Thank you.
Yeah, we were going to answer that on the air. It makes a lot more sense than tossing it out there. What have you got for us?
I was actually calling with a little bit of opinion and a question.
Okay.
First, my opinion is it's been stated on YouTube. I'm a YouTube user, and I've got a lot of education and information about atheism. I'm an atheist myself, and I think what's out there on YouTube is great.
Oh, I agree.
It's also been said that the Internet is where religion goes to die.
Oh, yeah, Thunderfoot said that. That was great.
And I think that's a very good point. But I think that not only atheists know this, theists know this as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting, because for me, it seems that religions die at transitions. And we've had the transition from a non-networked world to or a limitedly networked world to a much more networked world where separate, disparate people have been able to connect and start talking to each other, which is why I'm in front of you today. But
right. I think that a lot of atheists will be watching this show, and your sister show, ACA, in Texas, and that's a great show, too. But I've noticed lately that there's less and less theists calling in, if you haven't noticed that either.
They're kind of victims of their own success in that way. And I know that the guys at the ACA actually did write a blog article about that, where they referred to their opening years as the days of milk and honey, where they could get crazy people to write in and, you know, why are there still monkeys, those kind of things. We're sort of an experiment in that way, where we're going to have to do this in a much more liberal environment. I know Austin is kind of a liberal oasis, but at the same time, they're surrounded by a lot of really, really crazy people.
I've heard it called a liberal enclave more than once.
Yeah, right, well, my question specifically is, like, how do you intend, or do you think other atheists should spread atheism or make it at least more acceptable? I mean, we're past the days of atheists being baby eaters, so...
I don't know completely yet.
Not everywhere.
Really?
No, you still hear some crazy, crazy shit when you man a booth at any festival. I mean, like, for instance, I get approached by people all the time if I man a booth for, like, Seattle Atheists. People will say there's the craziest stuff and throw it at you. And this isn't just conservatives and the right-wing Christians. If you look at any article that, say, somebody like Greta Christina or Sam Harris writes, and gets posted on something like Alternet, read the, and this is not, Alternet, by the way, is a very liberal website. You'll see some of the same canards coming from those liberal responders that you'll hear from the 700 Club. So that's a good reason why we're on in Seattle at the same time. I think if I was going to say what could atheists do is, in a lot of ways, we're going to talk about this later, because our big show topic, of course, is why do we have a show in the first place.
Well, I think Seattle is very progressive anyway. I mean, I'm from the East Coast, but I've always had that in my mind that Seattle is progressive, at least musically.
It's a pretty progressive town, and I'm talking as somebody who lived in somewhere significantly not progressive. Its laws are kind of in the media right now, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
And to move here, it was a sea change for me. And there's a Puget Sound area, and everywhere around it is pretty liberal. Down where you get by where I am in the South Sound, it's the transition sort of gets away. But Washington is a big state, and when you get over those mountains and get more east, it becomes a very different place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, California and Oregon get the same thing.
They do.
Where there's like, I mean, actually Washington is a real extreme example, because there actually is a physical barrier between the eastern and western. There's the Cascade Mountains. And you go over to, you cross the Cascade Mountains, you're essentially in West Idaho. And you really aren't in the Puget Sound area. Even on the west side, you leave Seattle, the farther you go, the more significantly conservative it gets. So it's really the Seattle area, if you want to treat it as like the epicenter. And then as you slowly move outward, you're going to see more and more conservatives and conservative religious people. But I think we're weird. We're not exactly Alabama. Right. I think that our conservatives here are less social conservatives who scream about religion, and they're more of the anti-government sort of
libertarian
sort of leaning ones.
Yeah. I just have my eye on the national number. I'm just keeping my eye on the non-affiliated national number.
Oh, okay. I guess getting back to your main question, though.
Went from 12, I think, percent to around 16% in the last couple of years, and I'm hoping to see that in 20 in the next 5 years. 20%.
The error bars on that are going to be huge. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't speak out, so
yeah.
You know, who knows what that number actually is.
It's hard to say.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for taking